style a little bit. It seemed like you used a little bit of foreboding sometimes in the story. For instance, when Kevin is racing Maggie to the hospital to have the twins, this was the first line in the book that really kind of grabbed me as foreboding. You said that he drove like a demon. It was interesting why you used that phrase to describe his driving. It was because I saw his personality develop through the story, and I know he's under a lot of stress as a farmer, but this was kind of early on, and the way you wrote his character was a little bit kind of acerbic, or a little, I don't know. He was, like we had talked about before, he was kind of that non esoteric kind of a guy. But when you wrote he drove like a demon, that kind of grabbed me.
Well, have you ever had a kid?
Yeah, I have.
Were you there when the baby was born?
No, I wasn't. I was late.
Okay, well, there's a little bit of a difference there. When you're a father and the baby is coming, you start to kind of like sympathetically connect to the wife in terms of the birthing experience, and there is a lot of desperation, and it gets to a point where you're almost like another person, and if anything gets in your way while you're trying to get to the goal of getting this baby out and making sure that your wife is safe and the child is safe, you kind of become this other thing. You're no longer the same person, and you get sort of taken over by another spirit. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad spirit, and I wouldn't necessarily say that all demons are bad. Sometimes demons just have a goal to reach, and anything that gets in their way will be destroyed.
Interesting. That's pretty cool, because I see, that's the thing about this interview is when I knew I was going to have like certain predispositions about some of the answers, but then I also was excited about how you would, explain it. So I like that. It was cool. And I also,
well, I mean, I'm sure you've seen movies where the husband is driving the wife to the hospital, and he's driving really fast. The cops have to pull him over, and then usually they escort him, and everybody forgives him because they know he's possessed.
Right, exactly. I wonder if it's a possession, or, that's interesting to talk about, because I guess we all have our like animal side, or I guess an animal demon maybe within us. So are we possessed, or is it just that animal nature within us that's just rising to the surface and taking over,
It's the animal. It's inside all of us. That's the original sin. That's what the Bible talks about. We're all born of sin because Cain killed Abel, and we all have Cain inside of us somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting. When I was going through your book, I was reviewing my notes, and I saw a phrase that I wrote at the top of the page at the beginning of chapter 22, and I wrote, and I don't remember why, but I wrote, "You only live once." What do you think about that? Do you believe in reincarnation? Do you think we only live once?
I just recently had an experience out of Mexico that was spiritual, and I think that we live on. I think our souls do go to another plane that has an individual serial number consciousness attached to it. Of course, the body is left behind, but I think we do have a serial number. I really do.
Like a soul serial number, I guess, right? That is
right. It's a unique barcode that is unique to us, that even though we do blend to the collective consciousness in the other dimension, we still retain our individual packet, if you will, of all the things that we've ever learned and were like and inherited and had come from and where we're heading, all those things. Because there's things that in future that are part of that barcode, too, that we don't even know the end of.
Interesting. That is interesting. I never thought of it like that. What do you want to share about your experience down in Mexico, or what it was that you had? Where did you say you had it?
Yeah, it was down in Yucatan. I got involved in a Mayan ceremony that's very ancient. That I won't go into great detail on the interview, but you and I can talk about it on the side. But it was quite profound and not unexpected. I mean, because it was something similar that I did experienced when I was a kid growing up in Northern California. During the '60s flower power times. But this was a little different, and especially being an older adult. I'm going to be 65 this year. I'm going to be a senior citizen. It's just interesting that the spiritual journey learning never ends. And if anything, it starts to begin around this age.
Yeah, interesting. I know the older I get, the more the more I learn, the less I think I know, and the older I get, the more, I guess, wisdom I get on how to handle situations. So, yeah.
Right. And then there's the old adage, I wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I definitely resemble that remark. You get into the issues that an independent farmer had in like the 70s and 80s and the 90s, like the twins' father, Kevin. He struggled for years throughout the story, keeping the farm from going bankrupt. You know, you discuss things like insect warfare versus insecticides as a way to help crops survive. And Kevin seems to represent the plight of the farmer. Did you want to sway the reader kind of toward sympathy toward farmers in general?
I just wanted to I've never been a farmer, but I did grow up in the San Joaquin Valley around a lot of farmers, so I kind of understand the whole way the business model works.
Mm-hmm.
And of late, and the reason why Farm Aid and things like that came about, 25, 30 years ago, whenever it did, when Willie Nelson started putting that together with all those people, was an awareness that the corporate greed of the corporate structure of capitalism in this country has made it very difficult for just a common farmer to just grow food for the people. I mean, let alone his own family. I mean, it's a very, very hard and difficult task. Now, I live here in an agricultural area here in San Luis Obispo, and I see it all the time. And Cal Poly, the college, in fact, I'm looking right at it as we're talking, is one of the biggest ag schools in the country, along with Texas A&M and Davis up in near Sacramento. And there's still, people are going to school to learn this stuff, especially the vintner business, because we have so many wineries up here now, and they're all college grads from Cal Poly here, and they're all trying to figure out a way to make a profitable grape industry, pay their bills, and put their kids through college, and it's very difficult. And so I have a passion and a sympathy for that, and that's what I was trying to write in a little bit of a political lean on Kevin's character and his struggle.
Yeah, you did well with that, because I could really feel what he was going through, and he even has to make a decision. He almost sells out. He does sell out the twins to save the farm, but the twins are okay with that. It's because the struggle isn't just for the farmer; it's for the whole family. And I like how you modernized and humanized the twins and made them very relatable to, I guess, younger people, because you wrote their characters young, the way you did.
Well, the book transpires through their entire younger life all the way into their adulthood, and I think the book ends with them being in their 40s, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a pretty long timeline to be writing about, which is not usual for a book. Most books these days that are successful usually are taking place in like 48 or 72 hours, of time, and it keeps it moving and really exciting, the pace. This was a challenge to try to write about a mother, her birth of her twins, and their journey into their adulthood up until the time that they finally are starting to come to grips with themselves and put away all their problems and their conflicts. Of course, there's conflicts between the twins, too, which was interesting because when I wrote their characters as having a conflict, the twins that I had actually based this story upon were always together. They never had any problems. And while I was in the process of writing the book, they ended up having a breakup between the two of them. And I preconceived that in the story before they even had that happen.
Really?
Kind of interesting.
Yeah,
and I think it's just only recently, in the last year, they've started communicating again.
That wasn't because of Billy, was it?
I'm not going to reveal any of that, no.
Okay, so it's funny because...
question, no.
Okay.
No, it had nothing to do with him.
All right. Yeah, I know, because I kind of... It's funny, I know other stuff, like the whole backstory that the listeners don't even know about, so that's fine, too.
We'll talk about that off record.
Right. I like how you actually weave the factual, like you said, it's a long timeline. I like how you weave factual events, pop culture, movies, TV shows, throughout the book. It brought you into the time frames that you were writing about. It's cool. And I even saw where you mentioned that the Star Wars, you wrote this, that the Star Wars theme was backward plagiarized, a John Barry composition, Born Free. I never knew that. It was plagiarized?
Well, I mean, there never was a lawsuit, I don't think. But when you take Born Free, the music written by Roger Williams, and you turn it over and play it backwards, it's Star Wars. So, either Roger or John Williams, they got to work that out between the two of them.
Interesting. That's funny. You write a line in the book, "You are what you eat." And I say that all the time. And in Skeleton Dolls, when the twins go to the Miter Institute, they get exotic foods to eat at that dinner. During the course of, the conversation at that dinner scene, you write, quote, "The chemical makeup of the nutrients and the spiritual value the animal has to offer." And Dr. Mobius, I think, he even mentions that the Aborigines believe eating kangaroo can make you jump higher. But another character sarcastically asks about eating beef, pork, and chicken in America and what it does to us. And it's pretty interesting that you brought up that subject matter. What do you think about eating animals, and why'd you bring that up?
It's controversial. I came up in a meat-eating house, and I ate meat most of my life. I did go through a vegetarian period when I was young, probably when I was about 17 and 18, around there, and that didn't last long. But I've also gone and studied down in San Diego at a place called Optimum Health Institute, used to be called Hippocrates, and they're totally raw vegan, and you go there and you stay there as a commune for like weeks on end, and you actually get to learn about what it's like to be totally vegan, especially raw vegan, non-dairy, non-egg, non-fish, totally raw vegan. And it's pretty interesting to see how you can survive that way without meat very easily, and that I only choose to eat meat just because I like it. Now as far as the spiritual or the slaughterhouse thing, I only buy organic meats now, and I only eat meats when I'm up the cabin that have been where they're wild and that I've harvested myself. And I try to only buy organic meats in town here, because we have a lot of real nice organic meat suppliers here. Like I said, it's agricultural around here. But as long as they're humanely, slaughtered, in a halal style, I don't think it's terrible to have protein in your life. I think monosaturated animal protein is still a very good nutrient for the brain and for bodily function. And I don't think that as paleo, Neanderthal, especially me being from Northern Europe as a Welshman, part Viking, and French and all that stuff, it's just a part of my makeup. I do really well with animal protein. I just always have, and never had any problems with it, But as far as the spiritual part of it, there is something to be said about the way that, industrialized corporate, meat industry is run, the antibiotics, the hormones, the way that they were raised, and kept in pens. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions there, and I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say I didn't feel guilty about it all the time and thinking about it all the time.
Yeah.
And for those people that are vegan, I wrote those passages that you were just talking about so they could get up and clap a little bit and go, yeah, that's right. I don't eat meat anymore, and that's why. So I wanted to give a moment for them to have their little day in the sun with that.
Well, I appreciate that. My wife and I are practicing vegetarians, and it can be tough sometimes because we're surrounded by that stuff. But listen, this hour, we got about a minute, and this hour flew by, and I feel like we could talk about. There's many more questions I didn't even get to that I had, but we only have an hour, and I think we could go on for another 2 or 3 hours. And I know you got rehearsal. You and your wife are rehearsing, so. I want to thank you, Kenny Lee Lewis, for being on the show. I love your book. I appreciate it, and I encourage everyone who's listening to go to Amazon.com and buy the book. You can get it on as a Kindle or paperback and order it. I ordered it. It came to my door 2 days later, and I just wish you continued success in everything that you're doing, and I really appreciate you being on the show tonight. Thanks, Kenny Lee.
Thank you. And just really quickly, I'd like to mention that, Steve Miller Band will be on tour this summer with Marty Stewart opening. We'll be coming to a lot of the zip codes we have been doing recently, so hopefully we'll be coming to your town soon. Also, I just got through producing my second record with a band called the Cody Blackbird Band. You can Google them, and they're a very interesting Native American rock band.
Cool.
I'm like I said, I'm still writing more books and doing my memoirs now of my life story.
awesome. Do you what's the website for the Cody Blackburn Band?